My name is Henry Thielman. I oversee product development at EQ3. Now more than ever, we have to think about ways of reducing our carbon footprint, and thoughtful products that are inherently non-disposable in function nor design is one of the ways that we contribute to reducing waste. If you haven't seen us in person yet, you can find our flagship store on 7th and 17th in Chelsea. Stay safe.
Welcome back to CLOSEUP. We are starting part 1 of our North American studio sessions, sponsored by EQ3 and brought to us with Dwell Magazine. It's my pleasure to introduce William Hanley, Editor-in-Chief of Dwell Magazine.
Thanks so much. And thanks to Wanted Design and ICFF for organizing this. It's great to be talking with designers again, even if it's remotely to a large degree. I'm very excited to be hosting the North American Design Sessions component of these couple of days. We have some great studios with us in conversation. Here in Brooklyn, playing for the home team, I guess, at Industry City, we have Rosie Lee, lighting designer based here. And from James Dieter's studio, Emily Pellin. Nice, thanks for joining.
Hi.
And then remotely from Vancouver, we have Salim Katak from Archiloom, and also Seth Grizzle from Grey Pants. Hey guys, I can see you on the monitor now.
Hi.
Thanks so much for joining. So the format's going to be a few short videos introducing the studios and practices of each of the designers. We'll watch those for the first half, and then we'll be doing a kind of informal Q&A with everyone. So we encourage you to post questions in the comments. We'll get to them if we can, and if not, we'll answer them in time. But let's take it away. I think, Rosie, you're up first.
Yes. Let's go. Yes, great. We're going to start with Rosie Lee. We've got designers from coast to coast.
Hi there, come on into my studio. My name is Rosie Lee. I'm a designer, and I founded my studio 5 years ago with my partner Philip Watkins. We design and produce sculptural lighting along with a team of artists and designers here in Brooklyn. I got my start in lighting design with my first prototype that I made as a student in college. My background is in furniture design, and the final piece that I designed leaving school was a lamp prototype. And when I turned that prototype on, it was just a big wow moment. It was magical, and that feeling has stuck with me ever since. And that really became the impetus to start my own studio practice. So the first series that I designed was a spoke and hub model, and it came together as these simple platonic solid forms. Once we got here, we realized that this system had so much flex in it, and that what happens if we start to stack these hubs on top of one another? What happens when we start to vary the sizes of these spheres? And all this questioning led us to sort of play around with these modules and start to combine them in different ways, start to vary the forms. And the Bubbly series was born. We started with a long linear form, and once we got to the linear, we realized that you couldn't just stack the balls one after another in a straightforward linear fashion. It just didn't look right to me. I wanted to feel like there was a sense of growth, some movement, some levity to these bubbles. So if you look at the final pieces, you'll notice that Bubbly has sort of an innate spiral in it. Once we finished the linear chandelier form, I got to thinking about branching and what happens if this were to sprout another arm. And that got me thinking about scholar stones. That was the inspiration for our Bubbly floor lamp. This is, I would say that this is like when I first started to treat this series as a sculpture, in that I wanted to be able to walk around it 360 degrees and still have the same impact front, back, side to side. The next year, I wanted to create a little bit more textural contrast. And I thought that adding in a little softness via hand-blown glass would really help give me that contrast, give me the mix of materials that I was craving. So I'd like to actually walk back here and talk a little bit about the some nice glass that is blown in Italy through a mold, and then the artisans go in and place these, what do you call them, wobbles in by hand. We have the smoke color, and my personal favorite, the opal colorway. And as you can see, it's actually quite variable, this color finish. It's a tricky color. It's a tricky color to get, and I was actually very inspired by opal glass from a few decades ago. So this is a completely new prototype that we have developed for over a year now. It took a while to go from this idea of a delicate string of bubbles and execute it. It didn't seem right to make this fully out of bubbles. I wanted, again, to create some more levity, to make a more delicate form. So these are actually custom chain links that resemble soap bubble silhouettes. Another really exciting addition we've made to the Bubbly series is this really optical, cool rainbow PVD finish. PVD standing for physical vapor deposition, which creates this color shifting rainbow ombre finish. I want to talk a little bit about the Blossom series because, again, Bubbly being comprised of, brass ball modules stacked up on each other, I wanted to go back to a more minimal form and discover that if we paired two ball modules together and then with two rods, we actually created a triangulated module that is quite strong and very capable of, making these very long and lean fixtures. And this was sort of the basis, the foundation of our Blossom series. As you can see, still quite simple construction, but because of the way we've paired it together, it makes it look like a branch. This served as the basis for our linear laurel chandelier, which is, again, one size module, rod, and then one size leaf. Let's actually go back to the machine room and look at how we make these leaves. I think that'll be fun. So these are the flat leaves that we get water jet cut. As you can see, they are, they're brass blanks. They're totally flat, and we hammer them to shape. This is sort of the first pass at hammering, and you can see we do draw lines in because we want to highlight some of these flowing curves. This is the second pass, so pretty subtle change. And then the third pass is where we start to get a little bit more deep forming, more grooves, and the color is actually from annealing. We heat up the metal so it becomes softer. It tempers it so that we're able to form it even further. So why don't we take one of these blanks and see how it becomes one of our hammered leaves. So since these leaves are solid brass construction, we're able to put any standard brass finish on them. But we've really settled on three main ones for our Blossom series. Brushed brass, which is your linear brush that is sealed with a satin lacquer. And we pair this with a polished brass frame with a high gloss lacquer. And this is actually a sample that we would send to a designer architect for their presentation purposes. We also will do a nickel, and then one of my favorite finishes, an oil rubbed bronze. So it's a patinated finish, and then they brush it back to sort of reveal this lovely hammer texture. The laurel leaf, the one that I just hammered, is a slightly larger version, actually it might be this one right here, of the leaves that you see here. As you can see, there are a few variations, and we like to really try to get them close to the light so that they're able to bounce and diffuse some of the light that is being emanating here. This glass is actually just got in from our factory in Italy. I had developed this faceted glass shape last year, 2 years ago, for a custom project. And I wanted to try a different colorway. And then one of our latest projects is the Inez series. It is a series of palm-inspired lamps that are counterweighted with alabaster. So we have hand-folded copper palms with a minimal brass body with a alabaster counterweight. So that's me. This is my studio. These are all the projects that we're working on, from the curving laurel ring, the Blossom series customizations. I'm still working through bubbly strand prototypes. We got a lot going on. We are constantly working on custom projects. We're constantly trying to stretch our capabilities and keep on evolving the work. So I would love it if you could come by my studio, see these things in person, touch the materials, get to know our work even more. We're located at 36 Waverly Avenue, right outside the Brooklyn Navy Yard. And of course, you can see my works on my website, rosielee.com, and Instagram at Rosie Lee Studio. Thanks for dropping by, guys.
Fantastic, that was great. Rosie, it's so cool to see you hand-making everything in the studio and kind of getting a sense of the process.
Thank you. Yes, we really pride ourselves on our craft these days. I think that it's a combination of personality and craft combined, and I'm still, trying to up it every day.
Phenomenal. Yeah. Well, I think up next we're going to Salim in Vancouver.
Yes, for sure. We're going right from Brooklyn Navy Yard all the way to Vancouver for Archilume's modern, energy-efficient LED lighting. Let's take a look.
The idea behind Archilume came out of the desire to create a clean, minimalist form using a really small light source. In 2004, the LED industry was in its infancy, and it hadn't evolved to the point where we could actually realize our design. It wasn't until 2009, when the technology finally caught up, that Archilume came to fruition. We were able to design and create the original Archilume luminaire with total internal optics. In 2013, Archilume Lighting debuted its first luminaire featuring its total internal reflection optics system. The following year, Archilume expanded its product range by introducing the P28 chandelier for larger scale unique applications. This system rounded out a collection of products that used one module in multiple configurations to suit a variety of interior applications. In 2014, Archilume expanded its range of products to include wall-mounted luminaires and mini chandeliers. Archilume offers a set of lighting modules that are standardized, which can be configured in a variety of anodized color finishes. Customers can choose a number of pendants attached to a bespoke canopy, which works out to be more cost-effective than a completely bespoke solution. The luminaire evokes the best qualities of incandescent lighting: warmth, comfort, and intimacy. Archilume's unassuming simplicity masks a visionary design that revolutionizes the use of energy-efficient LEDs. The clear cylindrical lens with conical diffuser emits an elegant glow without the glare of a visible light source. Archilume uses the principles of total internal reflection in a sleek sculptural form suited to a variety of interior styles, from heritage to modern. The transparency of the fixture's design is suited to a variety of interior palettes. These dimmable luminaires can be used at counters and bar areas, or in clustered formations as chandeliers in entryways, lounges, and bars. Characterized by a bold spherical form, Aura's upper hemisphere is crafted of aircraft-grade machined aluminum in anodized finishes. The bottom is a clear optical lens featuring a frosted concave dome. Aura integrates the latest LED warm dimming technology, casting an elegant warm glow downwards from a range of 3000 degrees Kelvin to 1800 when dimmed. Available as a standard canopy luminaire, Aura is also compatible with Arculum's Configure Canopy system, offering unlimited creativity for design applications. Balance draws its inspiration from the Bauhaus movement and the sculptural works of Joan Miro and Alexander Calder. It consists of two disc shapes suspended on twin cables, hung one beneath the other in perpendicular directions. The upper half of each disc consists of machined anodized aluminum, while the lower half is a transparent acrylic lens with a frosted edge. This frosted edge allows the luminaire to emit a glare-free warm tone light. Compositionally balanced while creating visual tension, Balance offers an arresting sculptural accent in a beautifully functional luminaire. Defined by a strong upper conical shape, the Alto's form finishes at its base with a transparent jewel-like element reminiscent of a craftsman-cut diamond. The Alto incorporates the latest in warm dimming LED technology, starting at a full brightness of 3000 degrees Kelvin and dimming down to 1800 degrees at low brightness. It can hang as a single element or be grouped to create inspiring installations on a grand scale. The Alto is fully compatible with Arculum's Configure Canopy system to create expanded lighting expressions for designers. Further to this, we've developed our Configure Canopy system, which allows for a multitude of custom configurations.
Configure by Arculum is a modular canopy system. It's highly flexible in configuration possibilities, reconfigurability, canopy shape options, and luminaire options. It all starts with the hexagon, a shape that is symmetrical and simple, yet becomes dynamic and scalable when repeated along any one of its 6 sides. The hexagonal mounting and canopy plate attaches to the ceiling. Configurate's shared edge design allows for on-site electrical connection between each module. The nature of this system allows for ease of change by adding or removing modules during the design or installation stage. As standard, the canopy module is constructed of clear anodized aluminum, but other anodized finishes can be explored for a more bespoke solution. The repeated hexagon creates a roughly circular tiling effect, and with 2 other canopy shape options, diamond and triangle, a designer's imagination is free to create constellation-like tiling effects. With an arrangement of Configure modular canopies now in place, the stage is set to suspend Arculum's original luminaire, or the typology luminaires of Aura and Alto. To add to the system's flexibility, suspension cables are designer specified. They can be consistent in length or varied for a staggered aesthetic. Arculum's Configure modular canopy system seamlessly unites with the jewel-like quality of the luminaires to create a captivating, dimmable LED lighting experience, visually coherent as an individual pennant or repeated into a chandelier, resulting in elegant patterns of light.
LED technology within the lighting industry will continue to expand and push the boundaries of design, especially within the bespoke lighting industry.
Thanks, Salim. That was great. It was wonderful to get a sense of the overall collection. You know, there are very different pieces, but they have a family resemblance that I think, you know, holds together as a single sensibility running through everything the studio puts out there.
Yes, and I think we're going to look forward to hearing more from Salim in just a moment. But we're going to go from Vancouver back to Brooklyn. We're going to go see behind the scenes of the Brooklyn Navy Yard lighting practice of James Dieter. Let's take a look.
Welcome. I'm James Dieter, and I would like to welcome you to our shop here in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. I started designing lighting in 2001, and we've been in the Navy Yard for about 17 years. At least 90% of everything is done in-house, which gives us a lot of control over quality and the ability to make design changes and variations on things. So if you want, I can give you a little history. We'll go back to the office space here. So I got started in lighting in 2001. And at that time, the company I had was called Deform. This is still in existence. It's a line that's based on a construction method, really. So we were using, and still do, use wood veneer in these sort of textural interlocking laser cut forms. 2015, I decided to start working under my own name as a studio. The sort of genesis was a toy that I came across, for which this is a large model of, and this is a string of, or a ring of tetrahedrons. So this has sort of a kaleidoscopic geometry to it, which was really intriguing to me. And I began working on sort of variations of this. This is the Keta. These surfaces are all very adaptable from a designer's perspective. You can specify color, texture, and metal finishes, of course. So there's a lot of variety that can be had with this. And here is the kite version, which is sort of the more open fabric rendition of this. So these are where we have planes on two sides of each tetrahedron. Because of the interplay of the parts, it's the translucency, I feel like, in the fabric in this is interesting, and the combination of doing both opaque and transparent fabrics or sheer fabrics, I think it has interesting possibilities. This is disco. It's definitely a departure from the tetrahedrons, but this was the first of the fixtures that had a much more graphic kind of inspiration to it. So the lit discs are backed on one side with solid, in this case black, but it could be a variety of finishes, either anodized or plated. If you want to take a step around to the back here, I can show you the manufacturing on some of these parts. So for that disco, we're setting up over here to cut the back plates. So a piece like this, with these, the holes and the cutouts and whatnot, begins as just a blank. Having these two machines, a lathe and a mill, it's a very versatile combination of things. We can cut a really wide variety of material. In this case, so also for the disco, we cut this blank first on the laser around the corner and then put it on the mill to cut the, a variety of recesses and things that clean this part up. So having these two machines, both in terms of being able to prototype things and even in the sense of manufacturing, like I said, we make about 90% of all of our parts here. There's so many variables that can be dealt with when you are in full control of the part yourself. So over here is another material that we got involved with just this past year. I became interested in using a ceramic, in this case porcelain, diffuser. This is slip cast in this mold here, and then we fire these. We can step around. I'll show you. So this is the elbow fixture, and this is, like I say, that porcelain piece. We also do that diffuser in glass. These are parts that we are continuing to experiment with, so we'll undoubtedly get into some colored slip on this one, and we can do the glass in a number of colors as well. This is just one form of the elbow fixture. So we have a number of sort of specified forms, and there's also the possibility of doing a lot of different customization. In this case, we're looking at a tower. If we go to this wall over here, you can see this is a wall version of that elbow structure. In this case, the frame is in sterling silver, and these are the porcelain diffusers on that. So all of this configuration is changeable. The three new things that we have most recently done are based on a band structure. So in this case, that band is a bent flat piece, and in the case of these two, which is the Guston and the Cross, are flat bands that are sort of balanced linkages. These are designed and constructed so that they're kind of like fixed mobiles. Everything has to be worked out very carefully in terms of the composition, so that the visual composition and the balanced composition actually work out together, because the weights of everything are critical in making sure these come out flat. The structure of this is actually such that the power is carried on the aluminum frame, and there are not any wires in the framework itself. These band structure things sort of developed out of an interest, or an inspiration, I suppose, being this Rei Kawakubo show. I think it was 2017 at the Met. These fabric pieces, have a graphic kind of fold effect about them, and there's a wide range of choices there for the designer to specify. And of course, the configurations are adaptable as well. Also on this wall is a project this is actually for a client and in colors that they had specified. This is a meta fixture which kind of originated as the wall version of the kite. So it's the same framework, it just doesn't have the fabric pieces in it. It's always great to work with clients who have the ability to bring you opportunities for sort of new visions of your pieces. Well, I'd like to thank you for stopping by and giving me the opportunity to show you our studio here. If you want to connect, you can find me on the web at jamesdieter.co or on Instagram at jamesdieter. Thank you.
Okay, I love the sense of play that runs through all of that work. It's really, really fun to look at, and it's really fun to see how it's made. Emily, I'm really looking forward to hearing a little more about what the studio has coming up during the Q&A.
Yeah, I'm glad we could be here for it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't realize how much manufacturing actually happens in Brooklyn and in New York City. So that was really interesting to see. Just a reminder to close-up viewers that you can select the option to go full screen to really see these amazing videos that are taking you behind the scenes of these companies. So from Brooklyn, we are going to go to the other coast, and we're going to go visit Grey Pants, based in Seattle and Amsterdam. We're going to speak with Seth, one of the co-founders, in just a moment. But for now, let's see what Grey Pants is all about.
I'm Seth. I am the co-founder of Grey Pants. It's a conceptual design lighting studio. For most of you that don't know, we're heading into our studio, which is in Soto, which is the south part of Seattle, which is the industrial warehouse district. This is my co-pilot. It's Fig. He's my buddy, and we're getting ready to turn into our studio here. It's the big blue building that's going to be on the left, and it's this sawtooth structure right here. That's it right there. All right, here we are heading to Grey Pants. It's going to be up here on the left. This is our design studio and manufacturing hub for North America. Going in here, we are up that ramp, and we will show you what's inside soon. Hey everybody. we take a peek inside of the wood shop over here. Just walk in. This is Soto Park. This is where Great Fence is. Darren, who's a good friend of ours, has Finn Design Shop. Which, we also partner with him and do some manufacturing in here. You can take a peek and see what's inside. There's Thaddeus. Thaddeus from Wave. There we go. All right. Just wave and say hi. This is Finn. That's Darren. Hi. Okay. Well, there's that. Let's just see how this goes. All right, we made it to Great Pants. We are in a warehouse in Soto. The building is from 1906. It was the Stetson Ross Machine Company. It's a beautiful old wood structure, wooden frames, timber warehouse. And above us, we have our prop ceiling system, which is part of our custom architectural series. And you'll see down the hall a little bit, we've got our cloud, which is also part of our custom installation. That's about 10,000 feet tall right there. And there's a couple other little things scattered here. These are our mobile trade show booths that we have. Our scrap lights in a box pretty much there. We also have our Kona and our Roost series. And then a display case behind us highlighting our Loci series, which is also part of our custom installations line. And these can make chandeliers, they can make custom installations and tile together. And these are all the different types of optics that you can use off of the fiber optic system that we have. So all sorts of stuff, all sorts of fun things we have. And then this takes you into the studio. There's our little waiting room area. Some awards we won, some gifts that we got from friends. This is the Roost series hanging in the corner over here, which was designed with a friend in Amsterdam. It's natural rust patina finish that we have. These are our scrap light series in white. This is the canopy system. These are all hanging off of a custom canopy that we designed that utilizes singular pendants but makes them multiple clusters. You can tile those together to make large installations or use one just as a chandelier. So that's a little sneak peek of what we got in the studio here in the waiting room. These are our wave panels that we have hanging out that we're getting some acoustic testing done on right now. It's part of our custom series as well. And this is my car, which is now our mobile phone booth in the office, I suppose. And you can wave to everybody working hard over there. Kyle, Caleb, Ryan, Alan, say hi. They're really pretending to work hard, but they really don't. So it's a joke. This is just a bunch of the different shapes and designs that we have for those. Right, we're gonna go over here. This is our conference table, and that's the Corona Light series that we have. And a spaceship that was from one of our video shoots that we did for the Corona lights. The Corona was inspired by the solar eclipse. That's where the name Corona comes from for us. It's built off of the Corona. We can pop over here and you can see more of our custom shop here. This is where we do a lot of our custom installations and custom work that we're working on. And you see here, there's Caleb and Alan and Shosho and Michelle. They're doing some testing on some new products. Everyone say hi, wave. Yeah. Maybe Caleb will show you the UL shop. It's over here to the right. And there's Rachel inside. She can say hi.
It's like Rachel doing some assembly on a big Corona order that we have going through. So I think we're building like over 300 of these fixtures right now. So it's a good sized project. This is where we do all of our lighting assembly. It's a UL certified lighting shop, so all of our standard product comes with a UL sticker on it.
Should we pop over and see what they're up to yonder in production and grab one side? I know we said hi to him just a second. Yeah. Connie, say hi. Shosho again. Start basically expand part of the studio. We're just about to do a little renovation over here, all of our equipment, expand our scrap light production. So this is going to be unique behind the scenes look before we fill it full of cardboard and stuff. We have the works and planning back here. We also have more upstairs. And we also have some other friends upstairs that you guys can meet, which are our maybe our secret sauce to a lot of our creativity that are hiding in the back room. I'll show you that here. We'll head upstairs. Alright, you guys ready? Okay. That's where it wraps up our tour of Big Man. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope it was a nice behind the scenes glimpse of who we are, what we do, and the faces behind us. So thank you so much, and go be great.
Seth, it's so cool to see inside of the studio. There's no small amount of workspace envy going on here, I think, and some wonderful dogs running around as well. And I think as we start the Q&A section of this session, I wanted to talk a little bit about how close a lot of these studios are to the manufacturing process, you know, how making fits into the overall creative process of the design teams, and you know, what the processes behind these collections are. I guess, and Rosie, maybe you want to start, you know, are you sketching? Are you making models? What are you doing when you're laying the groundwork for a new direction for a piece? Oh my God,
anything and everything. I mean, it starts with a sketch, obviously. Sketching, sketching, sketching until you move into the material studies. Maybe you don't find the right material and you have to go back and solve the other problem that this new material has created. But I find that we have to see these things in person. You have to turn the lights on and see how the light is caught, or it bounces, or it's reflected or refracted. So a lot of it is working with our hands, is playing. And we, you know, try to keep an open mind until you take all these ideas and you're able to really distill them and filter them down into a system that makes sense, that works holistically.
And you know, Salim, one of my favorite pieces that Archiloom makes is the Balance series. And I'm wondering, how does something like that come about, playing with gravity and massing and things like that?
Well, it stemmed from just a lot of, like Rosie said, sketching, and more sketching. And then some of it was actually writing as well, where, you know, you just kind of distill your formal philosophy down to something that you want to, you know, have some physical form attributed to, and then more sketching, and then a little bit of model making, and then my process is about modeling, and then modeling in the computer to 3D and doing some 3D printing to study some masking skills, and then combining it with the lighting principles. So most of the Archilume line is based around the optical principle of total internal reflection, where we have half of the object, or 2/3 of the object is transparent, and then half the other part is opaque. So having the combination of opaque and transparent playing off of each other and creating a juxtaposition, and then of course the inspiration from the great artists and sculptors that preceded us. So the Bauhaus was a big influence, along with Joe Miro and Alexander Calder's mobile sort of sculptural installations that sort of I kind of combined and distilled down to how they would actually be realized by the rigor that we have in our studio, which is clean, simple, minimalist forms with a bit of a twist.
And a lot of the work has a similar illumination strategy. How did the studio come to that, and how does it kind of translate between the different pieces that you make?
Well, the studio came to centering its product design around the concept of total internal reflection because of the sort of evolution of the LED light source. So when the LED was first introduced to the market, I've been in the lighting industry for over 20 years, and watching the evolution of that, there was quite a bit of sort of discussion around how to control the glare from a small point light source like the LED, which caused a lot of sort of discomfort, even though it provided a nice amount of light output. So total internal reflection was a way to actually harness the power of the LED and control the glare. And from there, just creating a systems approach to sort of creating sort of sculptural modules of light that designers could use as basically Lego to play with and create their own installations.
I like the idea that these are kind of individual models that a designer can build on. You also get an amazing array of color temperatures and other lighting qualities out of that system. It's very cool. And so, over to Seth, you have a fairly large team and, again, a really amazing studio. What is that process like in sort of the genesis of a collection, whether it's Corona or something similar that you just walked us through?
It can be a little bit messy. We're very hands-on over here, and as you can tell, we have lots of room to play. We have kind of like a high-tech, low-tech process, I call it, whether it starts with scribbling, but it often goes into the computer. And we try to find ways to take things that we do in the computer and bring them back to our hands, to bring it back to an element of craft and playing and experimenting. One of the things I like to say, what we do is dream big, scribble often, and make thoughtfully. So that's just kind of how we kind of use that as a thing to approach all of our designs and the things that we do at Great Bands.
Can you talk about the origin of Corona specifically?
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to be, I think it was, and I apologize if you hear a lot of noise, there's trains going by in the background over here. So
it fits the atmosphere from your
said,
video. It's fantastic.
Yeah, there's a dog scratching and a train going by, so it's a little bit messy over here all the time. So
we should ask, what's your dog's name?
Fig.
Fig.
Like
yeah, Fig has a star turn
Yep.
at the beginning of that video. It's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, he always does. He's my shadow. But Corona, so I was lucky enough to go to when the solar eclipse came through the Northwest. I was down in Oregon on the coast, and this was a couple of years ago. And I was in the totality, and I was in this field, and all of a sudden the moon went in front of the sun, and you see this brilliant glow around the sun that was shadowed by the moon, which was the Corona. And it was just this amazing time, and everything got dark, and there was this field with the horses, and the horses went absolutely nuts, and it just kind of blew my mind. So it came back, and we just started playing around in the studio with that. So that was more or less the inspiration, nature doing what it does. So that was what drove us to that lighting series.
And the scale of those pieces is really fantastic too. I mean, talk about kind of versatile applications for designers. I should ask before we move on, because you didn't explain in the video, why is your studio called Gray Pants?
So I had started the company with my old college roommate, and I grew up in Ohio. We went to architecture school, and sometimes as designers, we overthink names, and we try to come up with wild things. And we were coming up with these really weird names at the time and making up words. And we used to have the same pair of gray pants when we were in school that like didn't have holes in them, which were our nice pants. And a friend at the time goes, well, why don't you just call it Gray Pants? So we did. That's how it started.
Well, as someone who writes about architecture for a living, I really appreciate you didn't go with some sort of Baroque capitalization and nonsense word. It's much easier.
Trust me, we came up with that and nixed it. So.
Well, Emily James isn't here, so we got to get the inside dirt on exactly what the creative process is like over at the studio. But like I said, I love the sense of play that runs through all that work. These delightful moments of kind of balance and something a little bit off kilter, but still these really elegant lines. How does that emerge from the studio process?
Yeah, it's interesting that you use the word play, because as James described in the video, some of the prior collection pieces that were the first pivot into the James Cedar collection were based on that tetrahedron toy. But kind of bringing it back to like the idiosyncrasy visually of the lighting, that's a little more of what the through line goal is, I think, for James. And play is lighthearted, but these are, for him, I think, more considerations of technical and mechanical explorations, and then looking for that off kilter, that feels like super applicable to the way that he thinks about his work as well. That off kilter feeling, like how did that get configured that way? And offering that sort of experience when you're approaching the lighting.
And you all have really interesting but very varied lighting collections from one another, but there is a sense of materiality and a sense of how what the work is made out of informs the design of the work. And I wonder, do any of you have a particular relationship to a particular material that's almost a kind of guiding force to your overall practice? Soap bubbles, maybe?
That's funny you should ask. I would say maybe sheet brass. It's a little weird, but I tend to think in terms of planar. So when I think about forms, I actually think about them existing as surfaces. So for me, working with paper, working with sheet goods comes really naturally. And you can sort of see that in the handmade elements that we make, the hammered leaf that starts as a flat cutout, the palms that start out as a flat cutout, and then we pleat and shape them. So, yeah, what did I just say? Brass sheet. There you go.
How did you come to that? Were you working with it one day and you were just like, this is, I'm particularly comfortable here?
Well, metal just has this ability to create any form. It's so malleable. You can cut it, you can weld it, you can, beat it up, and then it still looks good. It still can function because it's so strong, and it takes on all these different identities too through all these finishes, nickel to patina to polished. It's wonderful. It really has guided my practice these days.
Yeah, and for anyone else, I mean, we're talking about lighting, something that's sort of necessarily immaterial, I guess. But how is there a particular material or geometry that has inspired the different kinds of work that you're making?
I will say
Oh,
go ahead.
I was just going to say for us, we started with dumpster diving originally pretty much. So we ended up just looking for materials that were getting wasted and discarded, which was cardboard. So cardboard became something that was always around us that we started playing with. And since I went to architecture school to make topographic models, you just layer up cardboard. And I happened to see how light played through that interaction, and that's what led to our flagship series that we started with, which was scrap light. So there's still a lot of cardboard laying around here, and we're always sort of reinventing that process and playing with that and thinking about how things layer up and stack. And we've transitioned into other materials from then, but originally cardboard was sort of the main driver, and trying to think of something that was this vessel that was getting, discarded, that we would take and turn and give it a new life, that it could also then perhaps be recycled by, back into cardboard at the end of its life.
Is there a particular new material that you're mining for our current collection or an upcoming collection that you're excited about?
We're working on a new collection with cardboard right now, so we've kind of gone back to our roots. We started playing a lot with brass, which was in the Corona series, and some rusted metal, and we're also looking at this like flax material that's a sheet good, but we're kind of going back to our roots right now. So we're kind of coming full circle and just seeing where we can like take that and push that next.
What are you making with it?
I can't tell you yet.
Oh.
No,
I had to
we
ask.
think it has a lot of good acoustic properties to it. So we're working on getting some acoustic testing done and kind of driving that into more of like panels and things that can absorb sound and incorporate light within that space. So a whole new like direction within that space.
Well, I'm excited to hear about it when it's no longer under wraps. And Emily, you were going to chime in with
Oh, yeah.
James's work.
And speaking to the materiality a little bit, of course, the armature of his light fixtures is metal. So like Rosie, that's a big part of the flexibility in his designs and a part of the process of kind of him understanding how he can create the concepts of these balanced fixtures and linked flat arm bands. But what's really interesting to me about his fixtures is the kind of unexpected materials that he's bringing into lighting. He's applying texture. In the cross that we saw in the video, that's a Maharam fabric covered armature. So it adds an element of customization where those color schemes can change. And then also the porcelain, which is a newer material that's introduced into his lighting collection. I think for him it's creatively rewarding, and it's also awesome for, I think, consumers and for clients to be able to see as a possibility to specify, because as he explained, even the porcelain can change colors. It's millimeters thin. It's just such a gentle element, I think, applied to these more structural designs.
And Celine, you have an interesting range of metals that you're working with as well. Is there a particular material that's a point of departure for your studio?
Yes, there is. I am very partial to machined aluminum because I just love the look of a very finely finished piece of jewelry, and what we make is jewelry for architecture. So the machine sheen that we get out of the aluminum really kind of provides a great value add for us. And combining it with a contrasting transparent material like acrylic, the two go really well together for me. Added to that, the level of anodized finishes that you can get with aluminum are great, and its thermal properties are awesome for LED lighting, because LEDs can tend to run a bit hot. So machined aluminum, especially if it's anodized, tends to actually help cool the technology down right away. So it's sort of form follows function as far as that choice goes for me.
You're among designers when everyone's nodding in appreciation for machined aluminum. It's a very good reaction in the room. So Salim, I mentioned, what I really love about the work is that, it's very varied, but there's kind of a family resemblance among the different lines. Can you describe what you think the thread is, or do you totally disagree?
No, there's a definite thread. It's based all around, simple, minimal forms that are relatively, strong and as singular elements that can stand on their own, but are not so strong that when you group them together, they become overwhelming. So the idea is it's a restrained approach, and although I appreciate craft immensely, for my design direction for the studio, it was based around, just a quieter approach that can be, simple and strong on its own as a statement, or you can make a grand gesture with numerous of them, numerous amounts of them in a hotel lobby, for example, where you can have 300 fixtures and they all work really well together in creating a statement.
Yeah, back to that idea of being able to use the whole collection as kind of a palette of its own and designing within that. Well, I wanted to ask, I mean, it's been a really unusual year for everyone this year, and I have been asking designers regularly, how the pandemic and all of this fallout has changed your practice, their practices, and what launching collections has been like this year, how that's changing your creative thinking about where the studios could go. I don't know if anyone had seen a profound change or has just been thinking about what they're working on in a different way.
Well, I can echo something that Seth just mentioned earlier on, where he was talking about going back to their studio's roots for designing a new product. And we've done something very similar, gone back to our roots of, looking at a light source and deciding and trying to design concepts that are the best they can be as a new product for launch at a later date, which has allowed us the quietude and the time to just kind of think about, the values of the studio and going, back to sort of recentering, if you will, our design direction.
I've heard that from a lot of people, a sense of recentering is a good way to put it, or just a slowness that really has been a bit of a breath of fresh air in the creative process to some degree. Has anyone else, sort of changed what they're working on or had more time to think about different directions the studio could go?
Well, of course, the trade show circuit was massively disrupted in May, so we lost the opportunity to get our lights in front of people, to have people actually see them, walk around, and that's really valuable, especially in lighting. I hear this a lot where people say, the lights look better in person, which I was like, okay, that's definitely a compliment, but I think the photography is pretty good. So for me, that just means that there's no substitute for the real deal. Like people want to see the richness of the material. They want to see the light actually bouncing off these materials, and that can be really hard to convey through a photograph or even like a video. So we're actually focusing on finished samples and creating a little nice sample box that will act as a brand ambassador and sort of like show people the real materials, the real finishes that really, define our works.
That's very cool. A new kind of design challenge too, making this thing.
It is like
sharing the brass with
a new
everyone.
product design, like wrapped up within like oh my God, there's so many things to consider.
And Seth, have you guys out there had any sort of pivot in the last bit, or?
I'll piggyback off of there is no substitute, for the real, and I would much rather be, with you guys in person right now and not in Zoom. And we also have, part of our team is in Amsterdam, so I've seen a lot of them on Zoom and various types of, conferencing things, and it's just not the same. It's not the same to have that kind of interaction, but it's what we have to work with, right? And we've kind of also gone back to doing more like nostalgic things and drawing off ideas from the past.
Oh, it looks like we've lost Seth temporarily, but until he's back, I don't know if James Dieter Studio has been, affected in a way that has led to any creative developments.
Yeah, James and I have talked a lot about this, and one of the things for him from a design standpoint that's exciting, his work is featured in commercial settings and residential settings alike, and the residential settings are providing a new sense of satisfaction working on those projects. We saw a bit of an example in the video of one that he's working very closely with a client on. It's going to span the descent of a stairwell. It's a good, really representation of the types of creative applications that his lighting can take in spaces that the clients are willing to get a little creative as well. And that's, again, all the more satisfying for him to know that these fixtures are going to be living in people's most intimate spaces and the spaces that they are, A, spending, unprecedented amount of time in, but also their spaces of comfort, the spaces that they feel safest in, that his fixtures are going to be a part of that day to day for them.
That's great, yeah, and it is really interesting to see how everyone's relationship to their home has changed because of this. Obviously, with Dwell, we've seen all sorts of interest in different kinds of configurations of spaces and things that were adaptations becoming kind of the new normal lately. Yeah. So I wanted to ask, is there, Seth mentioned that he has a cardboard collection coming up that we're not allowed to talk about. Is there something that the studio is working on right now that you think is emblematic of a direction that came out of this work for residential?
Well, one thing about James's process, I think I sort of skipped over earlier, was that this collection he introduced this season has stemmed from, or it's an evolution of, a series of 2D sketches that he was doing on his iPhone, and kind of just something he returned to in idle time over the last couple of years that he realized were actually functioning as springboards for lighting, for his design practice. And so that's an ongoing process with him. He's continuing to do, to produce works in the sketchbook that will be likely developed into further collections down the line. And there's also, I'm sure, like all of the studios, there's a lot of prototyping that happens. There's a lot of, to use your word again, play. So there are some things that if you look closely in the video, you can catch a little glimpse of in the background, but I'll leave the further seasons to speak more to that.
I didn't mean to be teasing this out of everyone, but the people want to know. So, I mean, Rosie, on your side as well, like, is there, I keep coming back to the soap bubbles because I love that inspiration and just translating this one sort of natural phenomenon to all sorts of different unexpected materials, especially the hand-blown ones. Is there the equivalent of soap bubbles coming down the pike for you?
Oh, wow. I'm in the hot seat now. I would say that I think so. Really, the focus for us has been custom work, which actually is great for stretching our capabilities. We sometimes say yes to custom projects, not fully knowing exactly how to execute it. Sorry, I'm just putting it out there. And it really, forces us to learn really fast. It forces us to stretch and grow. And yeah, I think that by taking on these custom projects, my ability to work with the bubbles, to work with the Blossom series has really grown. And we're much more capable of tackling custom projects these days. So that's a really good thing.
Is that creative back and forth with the client something that adds to the practice?
Yeah, of course, because they're looking at the space. They have all these specific things that they want, and so the more we work with them, the more we understand what the needs are. The more we can tailor the piece to the specific installation, and really help them create that vibe that they're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of that, just a lot more custom work out there that coming out of this emphasis on the residential. Although I have to say, as a journalist, I'm eager to get back to in-person, seeing, smelling, tasting, touching the work. It's been an interesting year from that standpoint that, much more, we've now started doing smaller studio visits, but not having the sort of moment when you got to see, in person, everyone's work has been made for a really strange 2020.
Really strange, to say the least, yeah.
To say the least. Well, we're wrapping up. This session will continue with a different set of lighting designers in about a little more than 10 minutes right now. But I wanted to thank Salim and Seth, who we lost briefly, but it was great to hear from them earlier, and Emily and Rosie. Thank you so much for joining us at Industry City. Thanks to EQ3 for sponsoring this and for ICFF and Wanted Design for hosting this. So we'll be back in just a little over 10 minutes.
Can we do a clap for our, thank you for Bill for moderating.
Oh, thanks.
Welcome to my home, my family's home. This is a good friend of mine, John Sarah Ruth. She's the designer on this project, and she worked integrally with Jonathan Knowles and Laura Briggs, who are the architects.
So should we take them on a little tour?
Absolutely, let's do it.
Okay, cool. So you're in the dining room, which is really, you know, part of the kitchen and the living room, and this is really the heart of the home. The palette is really completely taken from and inspired by the location. We're sitting on a giant rock right now, and so we brought the rock indoors.
This floor reminded me of some mushrooms that we found on the property.
Yeah, exactly.
And it just really brings the outside in and makes us feel so enveloped with nature. I love that. This elevation is a multi-use space. It's arid and open, and that it really moves very easily between different types of uses that we could have for it.
Remember we were here during the rainstorm?
Yes, yes, I do remember that.
And then we could just sit on the perimeter and let it rain.
Let it rain right here on our sedum, which is doing nicely.
Looks beautiful.
And here we are. This is my peaceful bedroom. So here we are in the bathroom, and this had a hugely gratifying outcome.
I'm going to show you what you look like in the shower. Come on.
Okay, she wants me to do this. I'm such a good sport, look at me.
So this is a suite for Yvette's parents and also for Yvette's children. A little bit more of the playfulness that we're trying to make happen here, which is like the children's bedroom.
So, coming on outside, let's give you a little tour of the outside deck. Here we have an outside shower. Of course, we do a lot of grilling, a lot of vegetables. There's some amazing, amazing farmers markets in the area. Look at the little chipmunk. Oh,
Chipmunk?
Yeah, there's a little chipmunk.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, this is kind of like where you can dream.